Hi, so this is Curley at Curley's Chicken Ranch, and we told you that we was going to go ahead and work on our Suburban solar system. One of the things that we did, you can buy these solar panels new, you can buy them used, whatever, in different places. Normally they run about a dollar per watt, something like that. I wound up putting together a 400 watt panel that I got from Renagi, which was, I bought their kit. There's a 100 watt panels, a 30 amp PWM controller, wiring and stuff like that for that. That was what we had on our deer lease trailer at the deer lease. But like I told you, we're doing something different here at the house. So we're going to build a larger unit. And what we're using here, I found these locally, not too far from where we live. And these are used panels that were actually on a home. I guess they replaced them or upgraded them, or business or something. They were probably 4 or 5 years old. And where the panels, if you buy them new, you're going to be paying somewhere about $1 a watt, something like that. Well, these here, we got some 300 watt panels for about 80 bucks a piece, which is a really good deal. The thing is, when you buy solar panels, kind of made for automobile or campers and things, they're normally 12 volt panels. These panels here are actually on a home or on a business that, and you hear about that as far as commercials all the time, that hey, we'll install solar panels on your home, you can sell the energy back to the electrical provider. Well, these are larger panels to be able to do that. Okay, so because of that, we're normally on a DC setup on a home or a mobile trailer or van or something like that. Those are normally 12 volt panels. These right here, if you notice this, these are actually open circuit 45 volt panels, and they're 305 watt panels, and about a little over 8 amps. Okay, what that just basically means is these are not designed to work on your automobile. They're also too big to put on it, so that's okay. But we're using them in a larger setup on our home, so we can use these kind of panels. And depending on how you hook these panels up together, these are still DC current, and they still have plus and minus. Because they're DC, they have plus and minus connections. So depending on how you hook up these panels will kind of dictate how much amperage and how many volts that you're going to get out of the panels. Okay, if you hook them up in parallel, okay, if you hook up parallel, the volts will remain the same. So if this is like, let's say it's 45 volts, well, let's say it's 40 volts. If you hook them up parallel, then if you hook up 3 panels, then you're going to wind up having 40 volts, so the volts won't change, but the amps will be each amp times 3. So the amps will increase, but the volts will stay the same. So let's say if this is a little over 8 amps, so this would be, if you put 3 panels together, you'd wind up having 32 amps, but you'd only stay with 45 volts. Okay. Now, if you hook them up in a series, meaning that you hook them up positive, negative, negative, positive, 3 in a row. Okay. Then what would happen is the amps would stay the same. So you'd have basically the amps would stay the same, which would be about 8 amps, for the panel system. Okay. But the volts are going to triple. So in this setup right here, if you've got let's say 40 volts or 45 volts, you'd have 3 times that, so it'd be like 120 volts. If you hook up 3 together in a series, meaning that you hook positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, and then hook the 2 outside panels, the positive to the positive side, negative side, then this would wind up being 120 volts DC current. Okay, so it's still dangerous. You want to be careful playing with this, and if you're not comfortable with it, let somebody else help you. Okay, but if you hook them up in parallel, like I said, you'd wind up having 3 times the amps, so it'd be like 24 amps and 45 volts. Or you'd wind up, if you hooked them up in series, positive, negative, negative, positive, then you'd wind up the amps would stay the same, which is 8 amps, but then the volts would be triple. So this would be like 120 volts. And I'm gonna show you this up here because I've got 3 panels on our, I just kind of got them testing. So I'll show you that. Okay, so I'm showing you the panels right now. And I'm explaining to you right here what I was talking about previously is each panel wire has a positive and a negative. Okay, positive each panel, and this is because it's DC current. So what I did, these actually are hooked up in a series. These are hooked up in a series, where the positive on one is hooked up to the negative on the next one. The same thing here. The positive again is hooked up to the negative on the third panel. Okay, so then what you got now is you got one positive over to the side. Okay, so you got one positive right there, and then you got one negative right here. So each panel here is a 300 watt panel, or 305. They all have positive and negative leads. Depending on how you hook them up will depend on how much power you get. And I've got these hooked up in series, where I got the positive hooked up to the negative, positive hooked up to the negative. So now I've got one negative or positive on this side, then I've got the other leg on this other side. The other two are hooked up together, or actually all three are hooked up together. Okay, so but the way I've got it hooked up is, if I check this now with my meter, okay, this should register open voltage around 110 to 120 volts, the way I've got it wired right now. Okay, if I would have hooked it up in series, I mean in parallel, where you hook the positives together, the negatives together, and then hook that to the solar controller, then what would happen is it would wind up being, the volts would stay the same. Okay, the volts would wind up being constant at 40 to 45 volts, whatever the panels are marked at. But then the amps would change, and there's around 8 amps per panel. So then there'd be 3 times 8, which would be 24 amps coming out of the panels in parallel. Okay, but I've got these hooked up in a series, so the amps will remain the same, 8 amps coming off the full 3 panels. And what will happen then is the volts will be tripled. So each panel is 40 volts. So now it should read around 120 volts, between 110 and 120 volts by my meter. Okay, let's take a look. Hard to do, trying to hold everything. And I'm not getting a good connection because I'm not holding it. Okay, so as you can tell on the meter that right now it's showing 113 volts. And what will happen is, in the morning when I first turn these on, let me get this close enough. When I first turn these on in the morning, in the cooler time, these actually registered 120 volts. Okay, what'll happen though, as solar panels warm up and as they get hotter, the hotter they get, they start working less efficiently. So now, when they originally this morning they were at 120 volts, now they were showing about 113, 114 volts, and that will continue to happen throughout the day as the more heats up. In the opposite, in the wintertime where it's very cold, by the way, these panels work the best when they're away from heat. So that's also a caution thing. If you overdrive your solar system, like for the wintertime when it's cold, they'll work the best. They'll push out the most amps, they'll push out the most watts, they'll push out the most volts. They'll work most efficiently. So you want to make sure you do not overpower your inverter. I'm sorry, do not overpower your charge controller. If you design it in the summertime, and you don't leave a headroom for that power to be more efficient in the wintertime, you may damage your system. Even though a lot of these solar controllers, they actually have different controls built in to handle a little bit of overload in this, but you want to make sure you stay below those so you don't burn up your system, okay, to make it fail. Okay, so like I said, the biggest thing is as the panels heat up, they become less efficient. The cooler they are in the direct sun, the more efficient they are. Okay, so be thinking about if you're going to build something, what size of system you want to build. Like I said, you can pay the dollar per watt that you buy these things new, but I was very fortunate to find these 300 watt panels at $80 for the panel, so it's less than 50 cents a watt, so which is really good. So you just got to be careful though, because these are not designed to run 12-volt systems, or they're not designed to run automobile systems. You can basically tame it all down, but they're not designed to put on top of your car or van. Okay, so we'll continue on to the next video. This is Curley at Curley's Chicken Ranch, and we'll continue on with our Suburban saga. Talk to you later.